Welcome to your Fantasy Fulfilled, right here on GSP the Network. I'm your girl, Latasha Miles, a.k.a. Joan Madden, the Gridiron Goddess, back with you again like my boo, Des Bryant, returning in the starting lineup for your week number 8 fantasy football tip. And I love this time of year. It's late October, early November. It's autumn, the brisk, crisp air, and fall foliage, and it's almost the holiday season. And before Thanksgiving and Christmas arrive, I have to take a moment and acknowledge Halloween. I love passing out candy to the kids. And if your fantasy team isn't passing you out any wins, if your roster is looking spooky, or if your team is scary good and you're looking to continue to get booed because you're so dominant in your league, then hey, have no fear. Joan Madden is here. Another reason why this is one of my favorite times of the year is the holy trinity of professional sports, if you will. NFL is going on, the World Series is going on, and NBA returned this week. Oh, what a time to be alive, in my Drake voice. And even though I'm dedicated to watching them all and I'm in love with all 3 of them in my Birdman voice, and I show all of them love, NFL is the nearest and dearest to my heart, and I will not miss a beat on these fantasy football tips. So let me take you out to the ball game, take you out to the crowd. I'm on deck, crushing the boards, dishing out dimes, and if you lost last week, then you probably didn't listen to me, but I'll make sure that you knock it out the park this week with a home run. She shoots, she scores. See what I did there? Now, I'm definitely not that female who mixes up sports terminology. Nope, I wouldn't dare holler out touchdown during the middle of a baseball game. I know better. By the way, tips like this and other tips are available in my book, When Football Season Turns You Into His Side Chick, The Ultimate Survival Guide for Relationships and Households During Football Season. And it is available right now on Amazon.com and CreateSpace.com. So make sure you go out and get your copies. But because we are at that time of year where these 3 major sports are blending and merging, I might do some cross references in my breakdown on this episode, but I will do these cross references successfully. I won't be as clueless as Stacey Dash was, pun intended. So let's tip this thing off with your sure shots for week number 8, starting with the surprise at quarterback, and I'm going with Sam Bradford. Yes, I know that he stunk it up last week in Philadelphia, ending their undefeated streak coming off of that bye week. But hey, Philly is a team that allows only 18 points a game, and their defense preys on scoring off of turnovers. Plus, this defense has practiced against him. I mean, after all, he was with the Eagles just a few short months ago, so they are very familiar with his nuances. So that loss against them, that was nothing to be embarrassed about. However, I do expect him to bounce back this week like ground balls in my Lil Wayne voice, and it's the World Series, so why not? Bradford should be fine this week against the Bears with an undermanned secondary and losers of 3 straight, including the inability to handle the passing attack from A-Rod. Now, I've mentioned some MLB references in this episode, but in this particular instance, I'm not talking about A-Rod as in Alex Rodriguez. Nah, I'm talking about Aaron Rodgers. He's given an extra day as this contest happens on Monday night, which allows Stephon Diggs extra time to heal, and McKinnon might not be playing, which takes away an asset to their running game, which might consequently cause Bradford to throw more as well. I also like Kyle Rudolph to reemerge this week, in addition to the fact that Bradford takes really good care of the ball. Get this, he had his first turnover of the season last week against the Eagles. Yeah, no turnovers from a quarterback that late in the season is uncanny. I also suspect that Bradford will be dropping trays. Well, in this case, might even throw for close to 300 yards and pitch in 3 touchdowns. Staying in the NFC North, another sure shot that you should not only pick up, but you should have as an automatic starter for week 8 is Davante Adams of the Packers. He had a concussion earlier this season. He was, for the most part, on some quietness is kept the first 5 and 6 weeks of the season, but had a breakout performance last week with 132 yards and caught 13 out of his 16 passes. And sure, you could say, hey, Joan Madden, he was only playing the Bears. I get that. But this week he faces a Falcons team who is pretty charitable in the secondary, allowing more than 3 touchdowns a game, and close to 300 yards a game. And A-Rod threw the ball 56 times last weekend. He'll have that type of field day against this set of generous defensive backs. Plus, Jordy Nelson has become practically extinct in this offense. No more Eddie Lacy, and there's still some uncertainty with Nile Davis at the moment. Besides, how often do the Packers run the ball anyway? Barely, in my POP voice, and that routine won't change for Mike McCarthy's offensive system. A-Rod gets rid of the ball quickly. Adams gets separation and gets to the ball quickly. So with this match made in heaven, number 17 should continue to display his scoring ability. Moving on to the Broncos running back Davante Booker. Now, if you haven't been paying attention, this guy has turned into a slam dunk for the Super Bowl champs ground attack. And that will definitely continue now that C.J. Anderson is unfortunately out for the season. Head coach Gary Kubiak has been known for wanting to run the ball throughout his career. He did it while he was the offensive coordinator for the Broncos the first time around, during his tenure as the head coach with Houston, and now back in Denver again. He is still consistent with that philosophy, and he has been dropping hints lately that Booker's productivity will continue to increase. And on the docket this week, a potential revenge game against the divisional foe, the Chargers, who beat them in San Diego just a few weeks ago. That loss is still fresh on the Broncos' mind, and Denver serves revenge best on a dish served cold pretty well. And did you see what they did to their former quarterback, Brock Osweiler on Monday night? And in order for them to successfully win this game against San Diego and without Manti Te'o at the linebacker position, they will feed Booker the ball. He has been breaking through tackles, trucking defenders, and powers his way into the end zone. So you should book Davante Booker as a starter this week against San Diego. Remaining in the AFC West, I move on to Travis Kelce as an effective chart topper this week against the Colts. I can just stop right there. Look, he's going up against the Colts. And when it comes to top 3 consistent things with Swiss in their names, it's Swiss Miss, Swiss beats and the Colts having Swiss cheese defense. Yep, with all those holes in their defense, I'm talking the defensive unit as a whole, you can expect Kelce to take flight. Now, although the quarterback, Alex Smith, isn't the type of field general known to stretch the field, he utilizes Kelce effectively because of his speed and ability to get separation from the defense. He's kind of like a Jeremy Shockey type of tight end. You remember Shockey. Don't play me like you don't remember Shockey. And how he was able to create those lopsided mismatches. And again, the Chiefs are playing the Colts. So, for the University of Cincinnati alum, he should put up some satisfactory numbers this week. And, did I mention that they were playing the Colts? Now, as for your bench warmers, guys, you should just sit out for this week. Guys that you want to start, but like Bryson Tiller said, yeah, those guys. Okay, now I know that there are 6 teams on bye this week. The Ravens, the Steelers, the Giants, the Dolphins, the Rams, and the 49ers. You might be desperate not only because so many teams are on bye weeks, but also because so many of the quarterbacks on these 6 teams on bye weeks have been injured or just playing downright terrible. But don't get so desperate to the point to where you pick up Jay Cutler even though he's finally healthy. Now, Brian Hoyer had a horrible injury, breaking his arm, and here comes the return of Cutler, who had a horrible start to the season. And this Sunday he has a horrible matchup. Now, I know that the city of Chicago is riding high on fumes right now with their Cubs playing in the World Series, and this will be a home game for the Bears, so perhaps some of that energy will transfer over to Soldier Field. But it won't matter as Chicago takes on their divisional rival, the Minnesota Vikings, who are just coming off of their first loss of the season, and I'm quite sure they'll be playing mad. See, I told you it was a horrible matchup. It's Halloween scary, as a matter of fact, and that's because of the Vikings' front 7, so Cutler will struggle. Now, Minnesota does have a little bit of a weakness in their secondary, and Cutler does have a big arm, but the Bears' offense runs completely different with him as their field general. He's had some time off, he's rusty, and he actually still isn't even 100%, even though he'll get the start. And Hoyer had way more chemistry with the receivers during his time as the starter, way more than Cutler did. And Cutler has been more familiar with Matt Forte in the backfield and Jeremy Langford, but Forte is now with the Jets and Langford is injured. So the Vikings will certainly stack the box with the rookie Jordan Howard and force Cutler to beat them. Don't get that desperate to where you go out and get the former Commodore. I like the World Series Cubs chances better against the Vikings than I do for the Bears and Cutler. I'm also pitching Isaiah Crowell to the dugout. I don't like his matchup either. This week he faces the Jets. Other than that game against David Johnson, the front seven has been pretty stout for the Jets, and I think they might even force a turnover on him. In addition, they kept Terrence West modest last weekend. Wasn't Baltimore's offense supposed to be better due to the fact that they fired their offensive coordinator? Yeah, that part. And I know that McCown is rejoining the lineup this week, but are we able to fully trust this offense yet? I mean, he's just getting back, and he might need a little bit more time to gel. Plus, still no Josh Gordon. Perhaps Gary Barnidge will put his disappearing act to an end. And will Terrell Pryor even play? The Jets recognize all these uncertainties as vulnerabilities for the Browns and will take advantage of it. They'll stack the box against the run and essentially keep Crowell in check like the Nike symbol. I'm also not a fan of Travis Benjamin in your lineup for this week. Now, he was supposed to be the #1 receiver, especially after the sudden and untimely loss of Keenan Allen for the season since week 1. Granted, Benjamin is also coming off of an injury himself, which could also be a reason why he has such a stalled performance. But with the unfortunate early loss of Allen for the Chargers, this would have been a prime opportunity for Benjamin to break out, but he hasn't taken advantage of the situation, and Tyrell Williams has actually become more of the go-to receiver for Phillip Rivers. Benjamin's targets and yards have declined. He's not as fast as Williams, and for the second time in 3 weeks, the Chargers face the Broncos, but this time at Mile High Stadium in Denver. And I really don't like the opposition that Benjamin is up against. The Broncos are trying to avoid a sweep here and will most likely play very aggressively against the pass and knowing what type of gunslinger of a quarterback that Rivers is. After all, you saw what C.J. Harris, Aqib Talib and company did to Will Fuller, DeAndre Hopkins, and those guys last Monday night. And even though Rivers is a completely different quarterback from Brock Osweiler, the Broncos' secondary plan on locking down on those receivers is just the same, and Benjamin is not exempt from this equation. Yes, the Chargers are a type of offense that focus on moving the ball down the field, but they seem to be moving on without much of an appearance from Benjamin, so this week you should do the same. Put Jacob Tamme on your reserves this week too. Yeah, I know that Matt Ryan has been doing an excellent job at the quarterback position so far this season, and he has even been in the mentions for possible MVP. But this is usually about the time of year when the Falcons begin to unravel. Matt Ryan's numbers definitely don't compare now to how they started at the beginning of the season, and history shows that Atlanta has started the season 5-0, 6-0 before they collapsed. And here we are, week 8, and they've lost 2 straight, so history might be repeating itself again, and especially due to the fact that they're facing a Green Bay team this week, a team that has had 10 days to prepare for this game, while Atlanta has had 7. This is a defense ran by Dom Capers, who has done a fairly decent job with the Packers this season, other than that game against the Cowboys. But they should keep Tamme to modest numbers. Plus, during this skid for the Falcons over the past couple of weeks, Matt Ryan's numbers have decreased, so consequently, so has Tamme's. He started stronger in the season, catching 6 and 5 passes during weeks 1 and 2, then 3, then 2, then 1, then 2, and 1 again last week, which of course was a touchdown, but nonetheless his productivity has declined weekly with the Falcons, and he just hasn't been the same since being away from Peyton Manning. Again, if you're thinking about starting these guys, you better do what Bryson Tiller said. And now for my favorite part of the show, hey, you need to get up, get out, and get something. Don't let these waiver wire studs pass you by. You need to get up, get out, and get something. Don't sleep since their stock is not high. As I remix Goody Mob and Outkast right there. All right, no doubt. And at the quarterback position, I can't believe that I'm actually saying this, but I like Ryan Fitzpatrick, especially this week. I think the scare with him losing his starting job briefly last week humbled him, and hey, he was in this situation before when he was the field general for the Bills and did some soul searching and had some success afterwards, a la a 10-6 output last season with the Jets. Now, of course, I'm no fan of injuries, but with Geno Smith now being out for the season, there is no tension, no conversation, and no pressure of him taking over. I think that the Jets will now rally as well because with their record so far this season, people are now playing for their jobs, and Fitzpatrick is included in that equation. He slid into home plate last Sunday with a come-from-behind victory, ending their 4-game losing streak and sending the Ravens to their own 4-game losing streak. And wow, what a generous gift that the Jets and Fitzpatrick get this week. At this point, the number 7 has turned out to be an unlucky number for the Cleveland Browns during their 7 games so far to start off their 2016 campaign. Other than Joe Flacco, every week quarterbacks going against the Browns have finished with top 12 fantasy numbers for the week. And Fitzy should continue with that trend. And with additional games coming against the 49ers, the Colts, and twice against the Dolphins, sans Reshad Jones, unfortunately, Geno Smith turned into the gift that just keeps on giving. And I'm sure Ryan Fitzpatrick has a little bit of gratitude for it as a result. Another sleeper I like this week is Mike Gillespie of the Bills. Now, he's no LaShawn McCoy, but because Shady keeps getting shade thrown at him with this nagging, unpredictable hamstring injury, so if you want to tighten up your roster, then adding Gillespie is a good route to go. Most likely, he will be a solid starter and should play a big role as Coach Rex Ryan plans to implement the ground attack against the Patriots team, who he's hoping to sweep this season. And even if Shady starts instead, again, this is a hamstring injury, so it could rear its ugly head again later today, and Gillespie will definitely be the go-to guy then. In addition, he'll complement the Tyrod Taylor orchestrated offense and bring fresh young legs to the equation. Another advantage for Gillespie is there is little film circulating on him in order for the Patriots to fully prepare for him, since he hasn't had a lot of work with the Bills previously, so no Spygate worries in this game. Moving on to the Redskins and recent breakout receiver Jamison Crowder. I know that some of his success depends on the health of Jordan Reed, and he's definitely benefited from Reed's absence, but regardless, I still like this guy. His targets and catches have improved over the past few weeks, and because he has been able to produce while Reed has been MIA, the Redskins could and should stick with him while he's on this hot streak. Until proven otherwise, continue to throw him the ball. Plus, with the virtual disappearance of Deshaun Jackson in his contract year with the Redskins, Jay Gruden's pass-friendly offense, the balance that the Redskins have started to utilize more and more each week, and the fact that Crowder is about this close to becoming the number 1 receiver and other reasons make him a vital part of your roster. Other than a bye next week, you should be able to still add the former Blue Devil to your roster. Can you believe that we're actually talking about a former standout from Duke in the football capacity rather than basketball? Wow, times have really changed, and shout outs to Bull City, by the way. And rounding out this week's sleeper picks, don't hit the snooze button on Cameron Brate. I know that you think that some injuries and that DUI charge ran Safarian Jenkins up out of town into the Jets, but it was this guy, this Harvard alum. This Harvard alum came out of training camp as the clear-cut starter, and he's been elevating his game weekly ever since. Well, other than last week, but that's because they had such a big lead against the 49ers, so why continue to even throw the ball? I mean, who wouldn't play ball control and kill the clock in that situation? The Bucks have already had their bye, so you won't have to worry about that interruption being a factor in case you need him down the stretch while making your playoff push in your fantasy leagues. Also, keep in mind that Vincent Jackson is on IR, so Brate's reps should increase as the offense continues to develop in Jameis Winston's sophomore season with the Bucks. After all, Brate is a huge target for Winston in the red zone, and even though the Ivy Leaguer wasn't really utilized against San Fran last week, again because of that huge lead, you can expect him to be better in favorable matchups over the next 2 weeks against the Raiders today and the Falcons next week, so he'll actually get to go trick-or-treating late in October and in early November, and he should have plenty of treats in his goodie bags, courtesy of these 2 upcoming secondary units. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Your Fantasy Fulfilled. Thanks again so much for tuning in, and please don't forget to go out and get my book, When Football Season Turns You Into His Side Chick, The Ultimate Survival Guide for Relationships and Households During Football Season, available on createspace.com and amazon.com. And make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is SheSPN the Network, and continue to stay tuned. So just chill to the next episode. Enjoy the World Series, the NBA, and be safe over Halloween. Thanks again so much, and we'll catch you next time, and I'm out. What's going on, good people? It's your girl again, Latasha Miles, a.k.a. Joan Madden, the Gridiron Goddess. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at she_SPN and at Facebook at Latasha Joan Madden Miles. And subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is SheSPN the Network. Hey, I'm kind of a big deal. You know, I'm a little bit cute, got some beauty, got some brains. That way on that channel, you'll be able to see the interviews that I've done, some of the famous people that I worked with, the projects I worked on, things of that nature. And don't forget to log on to createspace.com and amazon.com and get your copies of my book, When Football Season Turns You Into His Side Chick, The Ultimate Survival Guide for Relationships and Households During Football Season. I appreciate your support. And hey, I gotta run. They're over here calling me on the other line. I gotta manage another fantasy football league. I'm out.
Gon' kick it off there, whoa. Gon' kick it off there, whoa. Hold up, we living big dreams now. As it seems now, we doing big things now. You on a small scale, we do it nationally. With an all-girls squad, now that's a fantasy league. Whoa, you better stay in pocket.